Welcome. This video has been created by the Rec Code Manager to provide further guidance and if you want to qualify as a safe isolation provider and you're not currently a qualified Rec party. In terms of what we're going to cover in this video, we're firstly going to provide a bit of context on the SIP role, but then point out to another video where we have provided further guidance on that. Then we're going to talk about the qualification requirements if you want to complete physical on-site metering work, such as the energization and de-energization of meter points. We're thirdly going to talk about the SIP role and how you can qualify in that. So the SIP role is what will allow you to contract directly with meter point owners to perform this work. And then we'll also give you some guidance on where you can find further information and context and support regarding the SIP role, and in fact any of your rec requirements, rec obligations, or rec queries. So if we move on firstly to talk a little bit more about the context. So we have created a separate video which talks solely about some of the context and some of the terminology we use around safe isolation providers, including, like I say, the terms under the rec, the history and context of the role, where your rec requirements are located as a SIP, and also where you can find further information and guidance. So I'd strongly recommend you check out that video if you've not already seen it, and if you want a bit more context on the SIP role and how it sits under the rec. As a bit of a summary, though, we have two related requirements for the energization, de-energization work that you may want to complete. So if you want to complete physical work on site, you'll need to become accredited as an electricity metering operative or an EMO to be able to perform this work safely, competently, and to be audited that you're able to do so. Then the SIP role itself is not about the actual on-site work, but it's about making sure that you can contract directly with the meter owner for this work, and also then afterwards send relevant market messages to other industry participants, such as the meter point supplier and potentially to the distribution network operator. So if you want to perform physical work, you'll need to get the EMO accreditation. And if you want to contract for the work directly, you'll also need to get the SIP qualification. So firstly, let's talk about the physical qualification as an EMO, the electricity metering operative. So under the Consolidated Metering Code of Practice, COMCOP, which incorporates elements of MACOPA or MOCOP before it, the COMCOP outlines the minimum requirements that apply to the installation, operation, and maintenance of metering equipment. So it's essentially around the safety and the competence and training of the people who will perform the work. So in order to get the EMO accreditation, you'll need to complete an audit, and that audit will involve the entire scope of the EMO requirements in COMCOP. So in order to get this accreditation, you'll need to show that you can install, exchange, remove meters and everything in between regarding the maintenance and the physical work on meters. So in order to get this accreditation, you'll have an initial desktop audit with the scheme auditors, the cost of which is outlined in direct charging statement. And this desktop audit will ensure that you have appropriate local work instructions and training and documentation in place for your operatives to complete this work safely. After 1 year, you'll also have a follow-up audit, which will include both a desktop audit as well as a site audit. And then after that, you'll have renewal audits every 2 years. So after your initial audit, your initial desktop audit, in the results of a compliance audit, the Rec Code Manager will send you a certificate outlining your accreditation, and will also put you on our list of qualified EMOs in the Rec Party Register. So once you're qualified as an EMO to do physical work on meters safely, you can then work under the instruction of a meter operator agent who is in charge of managing the portfolio of meter points, or you can also work under the instruction of a SIP who is qualified to contract directly with meter owners in certain circumstances. So to summarize, the EMO accreditation is what allows you to be qualified to work on metering equipment. However, you'll need to work under the instruction as a subcontractor to a MOA or a SIP. So if we move on then to what happens if you want to become a SIP yourself, a safe isolation provider. So firstly, what you'll need to do, as well as being qualified as an EMO, you'll need to set up an MPID. So an MPID is a market participant ID, which is essentially your 4 digits letterbox, which allows other market participants to be able to send messages to you and receive messages from you. So In order to set up a market participant ID or an MPID, you'll need to reach out to the Balance and Settlement Codes Market Domain Data Coordination Team, and the email for that is on the slide, mddc@alexon.co.uk. So after you've got your letterbox, your 4-digit MPID, you'll then need to demonstrate that you're able to operate the end-to-end business and technical processes that a SIP is required to fulfill. So that will include, firstly, submitting a business solution assessment, or a BSA, where you'll outline how you intend to operate this business. So that will include how you're going to make sure that the people that are doing the physical work are qualified, whether that will be in-house or whether that will be subcontracted out. You'll have to provide information on how your head office or HQ will manage the various requirements of a SIP, such as, after someone's gone out and completed the work, how you make sure you send the relevant data flows to the supplier, outlining that this work has been completed within the SLA defined under the REC code. And you'll also need to show us the technical solution for how you're actually going to send and receive these market messages or data flows. So after you've told us how you're going to operate this business with the BSA, we'll then conduct some testing with you. So this testing will be completed independently by yourself, and then you'll send us evidence afterwards of the testing you've completed. We'll obviously work together to define the scope of that testing, but in essence, it's going to involve three main elements, which is firstly, ensuring that the end-to-end business process functions as expected. So let's say that you're going to be sending certain data flows that the work has been completed. Well, how are you going to make sure that you have all of that information up front to be able to send that market message? Are you going to be getting some of this information from operatives on site, or do you have access to this data through other means, such as the electricity inquiry service? So the testing is just making sure that the entire end-to-end business process, as we say, functions as expected. We'll then do some testing over your technical ability to send the market messages correctly and accurately. And then finally, we'll also do some review of the controls and documentation that you have in place to make sure that you'll continuously meet these requirements going forwards. So after you've demonstrated that the end-to-end business and technical process will allow you to operate in line with your REC obligations, the REC code manager will essentially deem you as qualified. However, you will also need to accede to DACUSA before that qualification could be confirmed. So DACUSA is a separate code, and you'll have to complete the DACUSA accession form, which can be found on the DACUSA website. So you can request from DACUSA that you accede at any time. However, they will only approve this accession after you've completed the business solution assessment under the REC. So the choreography is really document your business solution assessment so we can understand how your business will operate. Then at the same time, you'll do some testing with us, and you'll also have to send off your DACUSA accession forms, and then those two activities will complete relatively simultaneously. Probably the DACUSA accession will complete sooner. Then as soon as you've got both those boxes ticked, you'll be deemed as qualified under the REC as a SIP. Finally, once you're qualified, you'll then need to set up your market participant ID to go live, to be able to actually send and receive live real messages. You'll do that by submitting a series of forms to the BSC, which we've outlined below. So you'll have to submit a change form. You'll have to submit an Entity 45 form to outline that you're going to be operating as a safe isolation provider. And if you don't already have an existing MPID, you'll also have to send off the Entity 1 form. So essentially, you'll be qualified under the REC, and then you'll be able to apply to BSC to make those MPIDs go live so you can actually begin operating. In order to get your MPIDs live, depending on when you send the forms to the BSC, it could take between 1.5 months. So I'd make sure you work with the REC code manager and BSC to ensure that those activities are coordinated. Cool. So after you've completed these requirements and shown that you're able to operate as a SIP, then you'll be qualified to do so and able to contract directly with the meter owners to de-energize and re-energize meter points. The actual physical work, like I say, will need to be done by a qualified EMO. So you could be a qualified EMO yourself, or you could subcontract out the physical work to another company who is qualified as an EMO. Cool. So in terms of if you need any further information and guidance, we have a REC wiki page on the REC portal, which outlines all the qualification requirements I've just gone through, and it also splits it out into the qualification requirements depending on your current qualification under the REC, or if you're not qualified, and also the type of work you want to do. If you do have any questions, the first port of call will be your operational account manager or OAM, who is there to answer any queries and provide guidance to assist you in meeting your obligations under the REC. So you'll be assigned an OAM after you have raised an application to the REC and acceded as a REC party. If at any time you do have any queries about the REC, you can also raise those to the REC service desk, which can be accessed via the REC portal, or you can send an email to inquiries@recmanager.co.uk. Finally, after you've raised an application, the REC Performance Assurance Qualification team will work with you to define an entry assessment plan, and will then guide you through the process in completing your qualification. So thank you very much for listening. And if you are going to be raising an application to become a SIP, I look forward to receiving that application. And if you do have any questions or queries, then hopefully you now know how to reach out to us as well.